Good evening, everyone. My apologies for the slight lag and delay. You know, good old technology is always keeping us hopping. But here we are on this snowy Tuesday evening. Welcome to Learning Live and welcome to another Create With Us session. Hopefully, hopefully you have grabbed your supplies. I know Kris will go through it as well, what you should have. And we have another fabulous sketch. Kris is going to be focusing on manly cards, masculine, something for the guys, and give you some tips and tricks on how to create this. This is a topic we are often asked about. And so we are happy to bring this theme to you tonight. So Kris, welcome and take it away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful crafting night on this beautiful winter day. I'm sure everybody's just had a joyful day getting through the snow. We've been focusing these learning lives on using our page maps and things in our work, and I kind of cottoned on to this option here that had circles and like round edges and hard edges and sort of like the banner in it, and I really like that idea. Now, have I made anything exactly like this? No. And that is exactly what you do with sketch designs. You look at it, you see the pieces you like, and you figure out how you want to lay them out on your finished work. But the hardest part, I think, is the beginning part, where you have to figure out how much space everything takes. So I'm just going to kind of walk through that with you. And I've made a few changes in that I'm not following this map completely when I'm doing my finish card, but I'll tell you what changes I've made as I go. So I'm assuming that this card is a 4¼ by 5½ inch card. That's what I'm using it for. So that's what it's going to be. So we've got our 4¼ by 5½ inch coming across. Now I did not want to double border mine. You can see the double border in my image here. I wasn't really interested in that because it's a more of a manly card. I feel I like an all over card. I don't know why, but it feels more masculine to me when it doesn't have that border. That it's just my opinion. It doesn't really mean it's true. So I just took out the border. Okay, I did not work with the border. So that left me with this large grade space being 4¼ by 5½ inches. So from that point, I tried to figure out what these three pieces look like. And they are two that are identical and a third one that's slightly bigger. So I looked at it and I kind of, figured out the spacing and decided that I would create one of these two strips here would be 1 inch by 3¾ inches, and that kind of gives you the space you need. So this is 1 inch by 3¾ inches. And then that centerpiece had to be slightly bigger. So I decided that that would be 1½ inches. So it gives me a quarter up and a quarter down from center more by 3¾ inches. Now, is that exactly, if I did the math, the ratio of those pieces? Probably not. But to me, that would make a balanced look. And of course, once you start actually cutting these pieces, if you find it's too wide, you'll cut it back. If you find it's too small, you might want to recut and make it larger. But for all intents and purposes, as you're beginning your attack on your sketch, you want to try to get things to a point where you could actually start cutting and making things. So the next thing I looked at was this banner here. Now the banner itself comes down from the top and comes up from the bottom and then has a cut in it. Well, I didn't really want to do that, but I did want to have this banner. So I ended up having my banner go right from the edge right down to the bottom with no cut. So I measured my banner to be approximately 1.5 inches. Okay, from side to side. And I thought, and because it's going top to bottom, it's going to be 5.5 inches. Okay, so that piece there, let's just fill that in for visual. That's going to be 1.5 by 5 inches, 5.5 inches, sorry. So that gave me my background, my middle ground, and my banner piece. Now I had to figure out the circles. Well, the circles are slightly smaller than the shape, or the center circle is slightly smaller than the shape, and it has 2 circles. Personally, when you're working with pattern paper, I feel that that little tiny, maybe I'll bring it up closer to the camera for you to see, that little tiny bit of a rim that you have around there is too small if you're using pattern paper. And I knew I was going to use pattern paper. So I made that slightly smaller. The inside is slightly smaller. So this circle, the inner circle, I'm going to put an I beside it. So that's the one that's in the middle out of the first pattern paper is going to be, let's see, 1.25 inches in diameter. And the outer circle, which is all this space now, just sketch that off. I decided that was going to be, oh, sorry, I mixed that up. Anyway, I'll go through when we're cutting it. This is actually, no, that's correct. That's 1.25 inches. I'm losing myself here. And then with the second pattern paper, which is the outer one, I have decided that would be 1.5 inches. So there's 1/4 inch difference between the inner circle and the outer circle on the larger circle. And this is 1.5 inches. So technically it comes right to the edge on my piece. These circles, same thing. I created a smaller inner circle and got rid of the little fine circle. The inside of this circle is 3/4 inch, and the outside of that circle is 1 inch. Again, almost meets the same size as the paper. And the same would be for this circle because they're identical. There we go. And 1 inch on the outside. So that gives me all the pieces. I have my background, I have my middle ground, I have my banner, and I have my doubled up circles. We'll worry about the sentiment later. So now we have to go to cutting it. Because I'm not going to be using full sheets because I have been cutting multiple cards with this pattern. So I will just walk through each piece and we'll work it together. So you're going to take your dark base page, the one that goes in the background. In my case, I have the indigo cardstock, so I can choose plain or dotted. On this one, I used dotted, so this time I'm going to use plain. And I'm going to cut that piece 4.25, which luckily it already happens to be. Maybe just a little sliver off, by 5.5. And that's my beginning. Put that aside for another project. You know me and my scraps. So this is my base piece. And then from my mid color, my mid-range color, in this case, it's the green from, I can't remember the name of the product at the moment, but your middle green color that you were going to, none of your pattern pieces. You're going to cut a strip that is 3 3/4 wide. So you on your 12 by 12 paper will take 3 3 inches and cut a strip down, which will give you your width. And then once you've done that, you'll take your width. Imagine this is my 12 by 12 piece of paper, and I'm going to cut 2 strips that are 1 inch. There's one. It's all right. And there's 2. So there's 2 strips that are 1 inch, which go across. Okay. And 1 strip, which is 1.5 inches. Okay, and this doesn't look like it's quite the same size. Oh, this is a little bigger. So let me get that the proper size. And 1.5 inches, it should be wide. Perfect. These guys might be a little wider because my piece, let me just trim that. There we go. All right, so there's my big middle piece, my lower piece, and my upper piece. Now, while I was making this, I made a change. In this piece, it shows the banner that goes underneath. I decided that I would have the banner go over top in my piece. So you can make that decision once we've got the banner. We're not gluing anything down quite yet, so you have some time to make those decisions. The banner is one of your 3 pattern papers. So you're going to have to decide with your pattern what is going to go in the background, what is going to be the large circle, and what is going to be the small circle. In my case, my large and small circles are the same pattern paper. So all the large circles are one pattern. All the small circles are another pattern, but you could alternate the patterns if you chose to. So right now we're talking about the background paper. And what I did with this particular paper is I looked for a set of these happy birthday icons. And I was measuring about 1.5 inches for this piece across. So I just kind of found some words and stickers that would give me that 1.5 inches. And yes, that meant cutting into the paper. And this leftover piece here, I think, is too wide. So I'm using my 12-inch paper, and I am going to cut 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches, no bigger than that, from this section here, because it has if you look at all the lineups, they're all the same on one side, whereas this side, they kind of go in and out, in and out. So that's going to be my first cut. And I'm going to make sure I give myself a little bit of a border. Let me see. Doesn't seem to be lining up properly. There we go. So that gives me this little bit of a white border along the edge, which I really liked because it kind of finished one side. And then I'm going to cut down. I'm going to give it about 1.5 inches, maybe a little more. I'm going to go to 1 5/8 inches myself. You'll make that determination based on your paper. And then that gives me a nice sort of strip. So some of the pieces fit in very nicely. Some of the pieces didn't. So fitting. Most of them fit in nicely, and then 2 of them sort of didn't fit in as nice. But that's okay, because you would get that with anything. But that nice white strip along the edge there, I liked because I needed to finish the edge. So you can see that I have it here as well for most of it. All right, flipping over. So now that piece we decided was going to be, sorry, just getting rid of my bits and pieces here. We decided was going to be the whole length, or I decided that. So that's going to be 5.5 inches, and I can take that 5.5 inches anywhere I want. Do I want to take it 5.5 inches here so that all these guys sit in? The only problem with doing it that way is there's no red. And I kind of want to have some of the red in the background if possible. And so I could take it here, and that would still show up at the top. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of everything. I am going to cut this shorter here so that my red shows up in this part here. You may not have that problem. And what this does is it gives me a nice little icon I can cut out of the paper as well. You may not have that problem with your paper, so cut away as you feel. The top of this was already cut off anyway, so I don't mind cutting that piece off. And now I have this nice piece that's going to go on the bottom that has red in it and yellow. So that gives me multiple opportunities for the different colors I use in my circles and in my sentiment. And I put these over top of that. So we're just laying it out. And now we'll do our circles. So I already have my one pattern cut, but I will walk you through that as soon as I find all the little pieces that were here a second ago. Now, something I'm going to show you tonight about making circles. If you don't have a circle, oh, there they are. There's one. There's two. There's bits and pieces. There's this for my circle cutter. Okay, I can't find my other circle, so I will show you how to cut circles, and I will cut one for myself. All right. So if you don't have circle cutters, get yourself a pin and a pencil that's sharp. And you're going to cut yourself a little piece of paper that is longer than the circle that you need. So our biggest circle is, let's see here. Looks to me like 1.5 inches. So make sure you have a piece of paper that's longer than 1.5 inches. And I'm going to put a hole using my pin from my glue at the bottom, about 1/4 inch from the bottom. All right. And I need this little guy. So he is a 3/4 inch circle. So half of 3/4 inch is 3/8 inch. So I am going to, from where I have my little hole, I'm going to put my little hole on my 0 line. I'm going to go over, measure 3/4 inch, and put a dot. And then I'm going to poke that dot and just open it up a little bit so I can get my pencil through it. So that when I use my pin to hold this paper down in the first hole, I can use my pencil in the second hole to draw a circle. And it's going to be the same size, like that. Okay, so if you don't ever have a circle punch big enough or a circle cutter big enough, you can make a circle, I guess you'd call it a compass, out of random paper. So I need I need a small one of those, because this first, in this color, in this one print, the biggest circle is 1 1/4 inches. So if you can make one at 1 1/4 inches, and then 2 of the same pattern at 3/4 of an inch. So I have made my template. This doesn't help you cut it. You still have to cut it, unfortunately. But it gives you something to cut with. There we go. So there is my circle. And now I can cut that out. So while you're hole punching those other things, I am going to cut out my circle. There we go. And just make sure that I get any pointy bits off there to keep it nice and round. Because cutting a circle with just a pair of scissors is sometimes not perfect. So you just need to adjust it. And hopefully you have punches so you don't need to do it this way. So now I have my 2 3/4 inch pieces and my 1 1/2 pin, 1 1/4 inch. Did I say that right? So this piece is 1 1/4 inch. This is 1 inch, or sorry, 3/4 of an inch, and that's 3/4 of an inch. Our second pattern, which is the one that's going to go underneath, we have 2 circles at 1 inch. And I'm going to do a punch for this one. So 2 circles at 1 inch. My pattern just happens to be the back of the stripe pattern. There we go. And then I need 1 at 1 1/2 inches. And I'm running out of paper, so it's tricky to get this last one. I have to really take a look. So let me just put something behind. There we go. So just so you can see them. So I have 1 1/4 inches, 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 1/2 inches, 1 inch, and 1 inch. Okay. And then these guys just all get matched up, and they're going to be on top of here. Now, in our image, it looks like these guys are lined one on top of the other, and the circles are centered in each spot. I didn't really like them to be centered, so I glued them slightly off center. All right, so, and all I did was just bring it up and leave myself a 1/16 of an inch at one end and whatever was there at the other end. And you don't need to really glue these. You can just use tape, and that's the one I'm gluing on. So again, 1/16 of an inch. There you go. Now, one thing you want to try to do is make sure you don't have your, if you have an angular pattern like I do, I would prefer it not, personally, I prefer it not to be straight up and down. I prefer it to be like on an angle. So that's the only thing I would look out for, is making sure that my small end, because I've put the small end on this side, is not going to have my pattern going horizontal when it's placed. So there we go. It's on an angle. And the same would happen for the two small ones. And they really only need a little bit of tape. Whoop. And that one's going to go to the bottom. There we go. And this one's going to go to the other side. There we go. Okay, so there's my pieces. And as you can see, I didn't put them straight up and down. I put them a little bit in and out. All right, so let's glue a few things down. You're going to need your tape runner and your pop dots. I use the roll of 2mm pop dots or pop tape. You can put your pin back on if you were using my method to cut your circles. And I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So the first thing I'm going to do, is I did put my stripes under, and I put this on top. Whereas on this one, this had the stripes on top with this underneath. So I'm doing the opposite. So I'm going to start with the centerpiece, and I'm just going to eyeball center. I did center it where on my sketch, it was a little more space here than up there, but I did center it going across. And so I'm just lining that up in the middle, and I'm giving myself, I'm looking for balance between the top and the bottom on this, and about center. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it, trying to make sure it's equal on both sides. It's hard when you're not standing over it. I'm a stander, so I have to shift my body up here, so my voice might sound different. There we go. Okay. Then I'm going to take the bottom or the top one, doesn't matter. And I am going to give it about 1/4 of an inch. And put that on there. And the same here. About 1/4 of an inch. Okay, then this long piece, the banner, or flag, or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to give that about 1/2 inch from the side because I want to see some of the green poke out from underneath. There we go. These guys are all glued on now. I am going to pop dot the back of all 3 of these. So let me turn them over. I put 2 on the big one and just 1 on the little ones. And starting with the big one, we're going to have the shorter, smaller side. It's looking a little bit. There we go. I am going to put that so that it comes a little bit over the green, but is centered top to bottom. Okay. Then I'm going to put one of the small ones with the small side. And I'm just going to have it slightly shift below this green line. You can do it differently. It's up to you. And then I'm going to take this small side. I'm going to have it down at the bottom. And I'm going to have that slightly go over the top of the green piece that goes through. There we go. And that's that. And then all we need now is a sentiment. I've used up a lot of my sentiments. I do have one left, and it says King for a Day. You can choose whatever works for you. And I'm going to pop dot that. And this time I am going to, I don't have my thin stuff with me today, so I'm just going to cut down the center of my tape. This doesn't always work because sometimes I get it too thick. And I'm going to keep the tops on it because I'm going to dust it to make sure it doesn't stick awkwardly. All right, so there we go. I left the tops on my double-sided tape. I'm going to take my powder and get rid of the sticky that is around it. There we go. Blow off any excess. Now I can take the tops of my stickies off, or my pop dots off, and I'm just going to slip that underneath. King for a Day. There we go. So there you have it. Now they're the identical layout, but even identical in layout, because of the different things I've used on it, it's different enough that you can see that they're not the same card. So I'm just going to show you, I played around with this idea quite a bit. So there's the original card. And then I have this card using pattern in the background. Oops, I'll do those ones later. And then I have that card using patterns in the strips. And then I have this card that used pattern in the strips in the background and some stickers and things. And then I thought, this doesn't have to be a birthday card. It can be in any kind of card. So here's one that can either be this way or this way, and it can be used for anything. It can be used for, and I changed the circle to an actual square, and I added the little flag bit at the end there and just curled it up slightly so that it has some 3D-ness to it. But these are all very still masculine looking, but they could be sympathy cards. They could be invitations. So this again is another way to do it where you're not following the same pattern. So all of these cards were based on that original sketch. And all I did was change circles to squares, banners to rectangles. So, you know, there's a million things you can do with just one sketch. The other thing you can do with sketches, whether they're card sketches or layout sketches, is you can make them into layouts. So this one is using the idea of this card sketch. So you've got your three mid colors, you've got your background, you've got your strip down the page. I've used circles here, and I like the way the circles were sort of alternating. So I've done that here. So I've got a circle on top of a circle. This one didn't seem to pop out enough for me, so I added a third circle to make it pop a little bit because the colors were getting muted. And then I just added some other things that were on the paper. And it was simple enough to modify this card layout to create this beautiful baby layout. So it doesn't have to be a masculine birthday card, although that was the focus for tonight. And there's lots of ways you can do that. You don't have to use it for a masculine birthday card. It can be a layout. And that's it for me tonight. I hope that that wasn't too fast for you and that you got some ideas around using a sketch and how they can be so many different things.
Kris, could you talk a little bit about your color choices and your pattern choices and how they made them, how it gives it more of that masculine look and what people should be looking for when they're pulling from their stash?
Sure. So usually with masculine anything, you try to stay away from soft edges. So circles wouldn't have been my first choice, but I took it on as a challenge because I was lucky enough to have paper that also was very masculine. So shapes make a difference. So less of the round, more of the angular makes it more masculine. Um, Things like banners, having points is good. Having no points at all is also good. Um, colors are important. Masculine colors tend to be um, primary and secondary colors that are of a darker nature. So, in terms of green, it would be like a middle green or darker. In this case, you've got a combination of light and dark together. So the overall perception is a darker green, like an olivey color green. Um, Yellows are good for guys as long as the yellow is more like a gold versus like a baby yellow or a pale pastel yellow. Stay away from pastels altogether. Plaids are great. Um, lines are really good for masculine cards, just having squiggly lines, as long as the lines are not curved and swirled, but they're sort of agitated lines where they have pointy edges. That makes them very masculine as well. Bold type versus script or upper and lowercase tend to be more masculine in terms of text. What else can I offer there?
Those are some really great tips.
Yeah, and stripes and plaids are good. I find stripes and plaids are hard to work together. As you notice, I have kept my stripes and my plaids separate. That could just be a me thing. I have seen other people do it, but I haven't got the knack of it. And it's not, it may look perfectly fine, but in my brain, it doesn't work. So, and yeah, so.
Well, those are fantastic tips, fantastic suggestions. And I hope that through this month, if all of you crafters take nothing else away from all the projects we've been showing you, is that sketches are a great starting point, but you don't have to follow them measure for measure. You can tweak, you can adapt, you can put them on that jaunty angle that I like so much. You can change the shapes, you can move things around. But if you need a starting point, if you need a kickstart to your mojo, then sketches are a great place to start. So that's it from us, I believe. We will get these posted as well. I'll get Kris to take some photos of her finished cards and we will get those posted. I do also have photos of Alexis's cards from last week that I know we still need to post. She had some lighting issues, so we had to retake the photos, but we will be posting those later this week, along with Kris's cards and along with the sketches, so that you guys can all be creating and having fun with all the tips and ideas that we shared. Any last words, Kris, or are you signing off?
I'm good. If anybody has any questions, I don't know.
I hope everybody was busy creating along with you. The chat was a little bit quiet, but ladies and any gents who are watching, if you are creating, please do post either in the comments of this or in our Papercrafts Inner Circle group. Or if you're shy but still want to share with us what you make, you can always email us as well. Stay safe in the snow out there, those of you who are in Ontario with us. And we will be back tomorrow night at 7 for our weekly What's New. Lots of good stuff to share with you guys tomorrow night. So don't miss that. And until then, have a wonderful evening.
Bye.